Okay, is everybody ready? You good, Taylor? You good? Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the December meeting of the Board of Education. First item on the agenda would be stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Phillips, would you call the roll, please?
Taylor Christian.
Here.
Terry Lally.
Here.
Amy White.
Here.
Ralph Wentz.
Here.
Brian Bagwell.
Here.
First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on November the 16th of last month. Are there any additions or corrections that anybody needs to make? Seeing there's none, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll motion.
Terry makes the motion. Second?
Second.
Amy seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And on to Mr. Phillips and the Treasurer's report.
All right, our regular general fund had a month-end balance in November of $3,630,182.11. If I can get my fingers to work. The grants down below, you can see we're getting ready in January to do another cash request. We did get cash in November, but some of the big ones that you see, the $61,000 was the CARES Act. We just did a final for that today, but we have $11,000 outstanding on that. We did get $49,000 so far on that one, of that $61,000 grant. The $91,000 one that started, the CARES Act grant that started in March, that we received all that money quite a while ago. And our regular grants, the three CCIP, Title I, IDEA, and Title IIA, got $46,000 in negative, $19,000, almost $20,000 in negative, and $6,000 in negative, and we'll do cash requests for those in January. Okay, at Farmers Bank, we have $3,498,520.21. Premier Bank, $1,046,338.54. Star Ohio, $241,584.22. That totals to $4,786,442.97. Outstanding checks, $27,836.55. We had a deposit in transit from the cafeteria from $24.25. So when you open the math, along with the $780 petty cash, it does match up to the cash summary report, the bottom figure on the previous page, $4,759,410.67. We've also received the revenue report, appropriations report, and disbursement report. If there's any questions on any of the four reports, I can entertain those now, and if not, we can move along.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Mr. Phillips at this time? Seeing there's none, may I have a motion to accept the Treasurer's report?
Taylor moves.
Taylor makes a motion. May I have a second?
Brian second.
Brian makes a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carries. And back to Mr. Phillips for a purchase order.
Each year at the end of the fiscal year, or soon after, at the very beginning of the calendar year, our student activity yearbook account has to encumber quite a bit of money to pay for the upcoming next year's book. because of COVID and the teachers not being here and not even being certain we were gonna have a book or a full book, they didn't make the purchase order in time. As you know, our policy says that if I can't approve after the fact any purchase order more than $1,000. And so I'm bringing this to you so that we can approve the yearbook. She is collecting money, and it hopefully, if everybody pays for the books that they ordered, she'll be okay.
Okay, may I have a motion to accept this purchase order request?
I move.
Terry makes the motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
Amy seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And next up will be new business, and on to Mrs. Carlson.
Good evening, everybody. I had everybody send me some reports. Unfortunately, we still have many people out. So I have a middle school report was sent to me. We've had a lot of great things going on in the middle school. Student Council supported a canned food drive for bullying prevention. Spreading Kindness Week, they collected 1,200 cans of food. They sent that out to help with the needy families over the holidays. During December 7th through the 11th, the middle school joined with the Mitten Tree Project in collecting personal hygiene items. 800 items were collected and taken over to the high school to support Mrs. Fiscal in the NHS project. Language Arts grade 6 sent 200 Christmas cards out to Greenbrier Healthcare in Boardman. They were delivered on December 17th. Ms. Staffeld and Ms. Chandler in the 8th grade teamed up with the United Way to do the no-sew blankets, the tie ones that they cut. They did 90 blankets that were taken. Ms. Schott in the 7th grade also joined in to make sure that we could get these done in time. All total, they ended up doing 105 blankets and delivered those off to the United Way to help. 8th graders also wrote letters to the nursing home residents in hopes to become pen pals and develop a long-lasting relationship. In 5th grade, we would like to congratulate Nick Toy for being chosen December's Pride Student Spotlight Award. Students are recognized for showing greater pride traits of being prepared, respectful, showing integrity, being driven, and enthusiastic. And then I also have some information from Ms. Favakwa, who is doing all the remote for 5th and 6th grade and also helping out with 7th. They just finished their first online book club. Students actually were requesting some extra learning activities revolving around the book. They have written and presented speeches via video in Google Classroom. They took part in a few different virtual field trips. The one that she mentioned was the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade, which then was turned into math, science, and history lessons. Ms. Favaka reached out. NASA was doing a grant for the 3D printing STEM project for the remote kids. So her and Mr. Drunowski actually took part in the professional development. There was a grant, and so it's gonna be 100% free, and they're gonna be doing a Living on Mars activity, doing a little bit of engineering and different development, sending it back to the company who will do the 3D printing and sending it back to our kids. So these are for our home remote students. 5th grade family also made Christmas gifts and delivered them to all the remote students because they weren't going to be able to be here for school. They've also this one was kind of neat, the Joy to the World Google Meets, and they had a foreign exchange student that they connected with from Italy. The kids were sharing Christmas traditions here, and then she in turn was sharing what they do in Italy. So that was kind of unique and exciting. The high school, as you all know, we had a family that had a horrible fire and lost everything. So our school community really stepped up, and it went even further beyond just financial items, purchasing Christmas gifts and support. Many of our staff members stepped up and actually helped her physically move. Helped her get things out of the house, moved into her new place, and helped them get set up. The sophomores took it upon themselves to also work with Ms. Elder, did a collection, and then further community members also heard about that and even added more support in. So can't thank our school community and our community enough for helping this family. Mitten Tree ended up serving 33 families and 86 students or children. Students from our high school did the deliveries today. So I think it's nice and humbling to watch, being able to see the excitement on the families when they deliver these things. At the elementary, some of the stuff I just wanted to touch on, one of the things we talk about is where are the gaps? Where are the kids going to be this year because of the end of last year? Well, one measure we have right now that is a definite, apples to apples is the third grade reading guarantee was given. And in the fall, it's always given. We find out what the cut score is. We find out what students are at risk of retention. Last year, we had a total of, 82% pass, and it was 82 students. Out of 82 students, we had 82% pass in the fall. We have 88 students, and we had 76% pass. When I actually did the numbers, it worked out to be, I think, 5 students in difference. I can actually tell you, when I look at the actual scale score, the scale score is higher as an average for the group. So apples to apples, the kids actually performed almost identical to last year. So that was actually refreshing to see that our third grade group that we're working with is at the same point where our other group was last year at this time. So it was very good data to receive. I'm going to let Ms. Lewis next time present a little bit more, but we did receive our special education score, and again, we met all indicators and received a perfect 4. So that was another great thing. And I already mentioned the NSA grant that Ms. Vivacqua worked on for our remote students. So that's everything going on right now around here. Ms. Lally, do you have anything for legislative?
I do not.
Mr. Christian, student?
Okay, thank you very much for that update. That is refreshing to hear as well. Next on the agenda will be the selection for a date and time for the 2021 organizational meeting. All of you received that. I guess I'll ask now. We have January 11th here at the K-12 at 7 o'clock. Does that work with everybody?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right, we'll come back and vote on that, but we'll leave that date plugged in there. And then also, we will look to change the February meeting to February 8th, I believe it is. That'd be the second Monday. Does that also work with everybody on that date?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll catch those when we come back and vote. Next up is a waiver for fiscal year 2022 tax budget. Mr. Phillips.
The late 1990s, the tax budget in favor of the 5-year forecast, each county budget commission, which is the county auditor, county treasurer, and prosecutor, has the ability to let certain governmental entities, schools primarily, not do a tax budget. The tax budget, if we were to do one, would be for calendar year 21 and half a calendar year 22. Because the 5-year forecast is 5 years, none of those numbers would ever match up. It was confusing boards, it was confusing the public, and so since the late 1990s, we've always accepted the Mahoning County Budget Commission's offer to waive the tax budget. This is just an annual thing we've been doing for many years, and again, it was a result of legislation passed shortly after the 5-year forecast legislation was passed.
Okay, thank you. Very light agenda on everything tonight. At this time, we'd entertain public participation for December agenda items, and then immediately after we vote, we'll go to public participation for non-agenda items. Does anybody have anything on agenda items at this time?
You mentioned in your agenda items a 5-year forecast, and I missed last meeting, but I looked it up on your website. And it looks like we're spending, for the current year, we're in about 181K more than we're taking in, 790K in 22, about $1.3 million in 23, $1.9 million in 24. Obviously, like you even said, I think in the meeting, it's unsustainable. My question is, I had a conversation with you this summer, Jim. You were considering retiring at the end of this year. Are you still planning to do that?
That's not on the agenda.
Okay,
So we're
well,
not
I
gonna
mean,
talk about
the only reason I
retirements
bring it
and
up
stuff.
is, I mean, obviously, you know, I don't think a levy is ever gonna pass, but,
So let's,
but-
real quick here, so Jim says, if you listen to that is a forecast. If spending continues the way it has, that's where we would be. Those are always the forecast if spending continues. We can change spending at any given time and to adjust for that. Obviously, we've never got to the point where spending has exceeded what we had and stuff, and so that will be continued going forward down the road.
so my question is, since you're gonna have to make those decisions pretty quickly, what are you guys looking at cutting?
Well, we're not looking at anything right at this moment tonight in this meeting, so we'll keep you informed when we get there.
Okay, 'cause the only reason I asked him if he was retiring is I think I've pushed that we should,
It
I
doesn't
think we
matter
should-
when he's retiring.
You know, well,
That's mute.
I've been a big proponent that I think we should look, you know, and not just this district, almost all the other districts, at sharing, especially on the administrative end, sharing positions with other districts. And I think, you know, I would implore that you start to look, maybe approach other districts and say, hey, we may have a retirement coming up. We would be very interested in possibly sharing a treasurer with you folks and then splitting that cost.
Okay, we'll take that into consideration. Thank you. Anybody else at this time? If not, we'll go back through and vote on the agenda items. First up, approval of moving the organizational meeting to January 11th. May I have a motion on that, please?
So motion.
Terry makes the motion and Amy will second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item up is changing the February meeting to February the 8th at 7 o'clock. May I have a motion to change the February meeting?
So moved.
Brian moves. Can I have a second, please?
I'll second.
Amy seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next up will be the waiver of the fiscal year 2022 tax budget. May I have a motion to waive that?
Taylor moves.
Taylor makes a motion. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Terry seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. At this time, we'll entertain public participation for non-agenda items. If anybody has anything at this time, please step up.
One of the things that I had brought up back in, earlier, I think in the summer, it was probably even before Beth was here, or before she was officially superintendent, was now that we're doing remote, we did remote all spring, we're getting pretty proficient at doing remote. I had said that I don't understand, you know, I take it we've eliminated snow days, but we haven't. We've already had a snow day, we've already had a 2-hour delay, and I just don't understand with, you know, how we've gone remote and we've pretty much mastered that, how we're still having snow days and 2-hour delays, especially when the middle school kids and the high school kids were already remote anyway, and we still called them off on a 2-hour delay. So I just don't understand that. The other thing that I would like to bring up, I've always, one of the things that I've pushed you guys, and I'm going to continue to push you on, I think we need to make a rule that if you are coaching a child, you cannot have one of your children on that team. And if you do, somebody else should have, you should have to step aside and let somebody else coach, because it's a conflict of interest. And I think if you look through the years, I put 3 kids through here, and it always amazes me the number of people who coach a team and their child all of a sudden gets all the awards at the end of the year. And the reason that's done is because the coaches are typically the ones that nominate those kids for it, and they're obviously nominating their kids. And I just think it's a conflict of interest. It causes a lot of bad blood. And I think it's something that we should really look at. And lastly, this didn't happen in our district, but there were 2 different districts that had sports teams win. I think Columbiana's girls beat up a team 70-0 in 8th grade girls. I think Western Reserve beat up Latonia or one of the other smaller schools, something like 80-20. I think that's disgusting. It's bullying. And I would hope we would put, something like a morals contract in our coaching, or at least have that conversation with our coaches. Because we wouldn't put up with bullying like that on kids. We wouldn't let another kid bully it. And I mean, when you do that, when you beat up on a weaker team like that and you embarrass them, I think it's unsportsmanlike. And it teaches both kids, the kids on the winning team and the losing team, it sends a very poor lesson. So I would hope we would encourage our coaches not to do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up will be the November, December, January district update. Bethany?
Thank you very much. Honestly, with sports kind of being intermittent, right now we have our wrestling team that has been able to continue moving forward. I know they're gaining their points. They're having a pretty successful start to their season. Our boys and girls basketball, varsity and JV, have also been playing and been able to stay healthy and continue to move forward. We're hoping in January that our middle school basketball teams can rejoin and start playing again. Unfortunately, they've had so many intermittent breaks that they've decided to take a break until January. Middle school wrestling is also moving forward and doing very well. I know the last 3 weeks has been a little crazy with intermittent coverage and whatnot. We try to do our best. We plan. We hire people to help cover classrooms, and then we even lose some of them, and we can't cover classrooms. So, to Rich's question, I can answer that regarding remote and snow days. That is the goal. Unfortunately, when you are shut down and you don't have technology in front of you, you can't do it. But it is a plan. I've actually talked to the union. We're probably going to look at it moving forward. How can we successfully do it? But when you require teachers to stay home, they don't have their smart boards, they don't have their live instruction. The 2-hour delay, we actually shortened the high school because it wasn't safe for the staff to get here. They still had a full day of instruction. We just took a few minutes out of each of their periods and they had a full day. But they were still required to do their work. The teachers have planning at the end of the day. We moved it to the beginning of the day, so it really didn't interrupt the students' academics with the 2-hour delay remote for them. But part of that is the teachers getting here and having live, making sure they have the right Chromebook so they can have a camera and actually talk to their students. Things aren't just loaded. They're teaching them directly off their smart boards like it's live instruction. So that is the goal, and I agree with you, and it is something that the union and I have talked with, and we'll probably start working with our teachers moving forward so we can utilize that more cohesively and agree it's a good idea. Other than that, we're just trying. The goal right now in January, and it was on my one call today, is that we will return face-to-face. A lot of school districts are choosing to take the first 2 to 3 weeks off. We actually saw a dip after Thanksgiving to the point we had one building had 5 kids absent, and then it seemed to ramp back up. So I'm going to evaluate it. We ask our parents to keep us posted over the holidays. Class coverage is our issue, not being able to cover a room. It's not like in the old days where you could take an entire room and combine them with another classroom, because now we can't socially distance. We've utilized this area a lot for the elementary when we don't have a gym teacher, when we don't have somebody, because we can spread the kids out in here. Cafeteria, we have intermittent times we can use because of lunches. So we have, the mezzanine. Baseball now has to set the tables back up after they're done with practice when they're practicing up there. Mezzanine is a rollover area. So we're utilizing all those areas for runoff when we don't have coverage, but even having someone to watch them right now was the issue with the amount of staff that we had out. So not ideal. I'm proud of my staff. Received a lot of calls from parents that, it was close. We got as close as we could to Christmas, and the education is really good and live, and it's direct, and they're laughing. They're having a good time with the kids. Teachers are giving assessments. It's very valid. Grades are going in. It's very different than it was for education last year at this time. So that would be my update.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is executive session, but Bethany doesn't believe she needs one tonight, or Jim. So next up will be personnel.
Very good. Have a few things on here. As I mentioned, trying to have those floating substitutes. You'll notice in the agenda further down, we are losing one. So at least for the month of January, which if you remember, I do these by 9 weeks. So Mr. Condas is willing to be a floating sub for us in the month of January and be here every day if we are in session. If we're not here, they don't come, they don't sign in. And then just a regular substitute would be Kaylee Luckland. She's also one of our coaches who has a desire to become an educator. So on Friday, she's going to sub for us to see if she really likes us. Next up, Amy Hollister. I'm recommending her to be a long-term substitute. She is an intervention specialist. We advertised for this job for over a month and a half. Unfortunately, Carol Dawson's substitute needs to step down. She actually resigned in November. She's helping us out part-time until, so I'm asking the board that we, starting in January, start her on the 61st day. She had the availability to go other places as well for higher pay, so this is kind of trying to keep her here. We have to have this position because it is a special education coverage. I'm asking the board to accept the resignation of Christian Silvestri, who is one of our floating substitutes. He resigned as of December 14th. He was also helping us with our remote at the high school, Spanish, some of the different electives, helping with grading and intervention. So he is still able to do that at night after the students have worked on it at the high school. So I'm asking that the board approve him as a remote instructor and grader to be paid $20 per hour. The system actually prints me a report, which is very nice. It's down to the minute. So there's no rounding. There's no, I think it was 15 minutes. It is to the minute how many minutes they put on. So we're going to use that to determine how much he has worked and put on for grading. And then retroactively approve the following stipends. Allison Zwingler and Nikki Cardinal are also remote development for 3rd and 4th grade. They build the system for remote learners that are home. They upload everything. They work with classroom teachers to align everything. So they're doing this above and beyond their daily work. So I'm asking the board to give them a stipend by each month of $500. Retroactively approve the 1-year contract at 0.5 full FTEs for RTI tutor contract for Allison Zwingler. Also retroactively approve a 1-year 0.4 FTEs for tutor contract for Nikki Cardinal. Approve Courtney Kane for 13 hours of home instruction remote. We have a student who is in need of remote instruction through special education services. And the next section is to approve the transportation tiers. The only change from last year in these tiers is Dwight Stacy was moved up to tier 1 due to, again, we need more drivers to transport our students going to different schools such as Pace or Bourbon. Approve our supplemental contract of Morgan Zopar, freshman basketball at 8%. She has her PAP license finalized. Also approve the individuals of volunteers, Bill Gearing, John Tomeno, Donald Newell for wrestling volunteer, and Sandra Kohler for basketball volunteer. Also, they all 4 have their PAP license, background checks, everything is in the office. Accept the retirement of Terry Davis, effective January 1st, 2021, as an instructional aide. And that would be it.
Okay, thank you very much. Anybody have any questions for Mrs. Carlson before we vote on those? If not, I'll entertain a motion for personnel.
Taylor moves.
Taylor makes a motion. May I have a second?
I second.
Terry seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And roll call, Mr. Phillips.
Taylor Christian,
Yes.
Ralph Wentz.
Yes.
Terry Lally,
Yes.
Amy White,
Yes.
Brian Bagwell.
Yes.
May I have a motion for adjournment? Brian moves. May I have a second?
Second.
Amy seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and I'd like to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you very much.
January 8th, no, January, thank you, and February 8th.